5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Good luck.
Good afternoon, everyone. Shalom. I'm Shosh Badrosian, spokeswoman for the National Public Diplomacy Directorate here in the Prime Minister's office. I will take a few questions after a couple of very brief points to share with you. Just make sure you put your questions in the chat of this Zoom with your name and your outlet. It is Sunday, October 26th, and today is day 751 since Hamas launched its brutal war on Israel. It has been 13 days since our 20 living hostages returned home, and we are still waiting for the return of our 13 deceased hostages that are still in captivity in Gaza. The urgency to bring them all home continues, as it's a commitment Prime Minister Netanyahu has made from the start of this war. Now, since President Trump's monumental visit here in Israel, Special Envoy Steve Witkoff and Jared Kushner have also visited the Prime Minister to discuss the ongoing plan. It's a plan that came to fruition through military and diplomatic pressure on Hamas by the Prime Minister and President Trump combined. In addition to Vice President J.D. Vance, just yesterday, his visit here, Secretary of State Marco Rubio completed his visit in Israel, which was concluded by a phone call with Prime Minister Netanyahu. The two discussed the outcomes of the visit and reaffirmed the deep partnership and circle of trust between Israel and the United States. The Prime Minister thanked Secretary Rubio for his steadfast and continued support of Israel as he remained committed to strengthening the U.S.-Israeli alliance during these challenging yet very optimistic days. The Prime Minister reiterated Israel's desire to advance peace despite ongoing security challenges, emphasizing how Israel and the United States can address these challenges and seize the opportunities together as they are changing the face of the Middle East one step at a time, like I said, together. We have 13 deceased hostages in the Gaza Strip still, which were supposed to be released nearly 2 weeks ago. Hamas committed to a plan that would release all 48 of our hostages at one time. And here we are, 2 weeks later, demanding for the release of our remaining hostages still there. Hamas kidnapped these innocent people, and it is their responsibility to bring them back home. As per the plan, Israel remains committed to. Let me reiterate what I've been saying for nearly 14 days now. Hamas knows where our hostages are, and we know they are aware of their locations. The media has taken the bait and somehow garnered empathy for Hamas, a terror organization, reasoning with their excuses that they can't locate our remaining hostages. Let it be known to the media. Israel is aware that Hamas knows where our deceased hostages are in fact located. If Hamas made more of an effort, they would be able to retrieve the remains of our hostages. Now, in full cooperation with Israel, the Prime Minister approved the entry of an Egyptian team into the Gaza Strip to assist in searching for our remains of our deceased hostages. Now, this is a technical team only, and none of these personnel are in the military. What I can share with you is the team is using between 2 to 3 excavator machines and 2 to 3 trucks to search for our deceased hostages. Now, the Red Cross and the Egyptian team are allowed entry beyond the IDF's yellow line position into Gaza territory to conduct the search for our hostages. Last week, the Prime Minister and his professional team met with the head of Egyptian intelligence here in Jerusalem to talk about the ongoing issues that need to be resolved. One of those topics was why our hostages have not all been returned yet. We are working together to execute this plan and ensure Hamas upholds their side of the agreement. The Prime Minister made it clear today at the start of a government meeting that took place this morning. Israel is an independent state and will not tolerate attacks against us, and we will respond according to our discretion. Israel does not ask for approval for this, as we control our own security. We have also made it clear that Israel will determine which forces are unacceptable to us in regards to international forces part of this plan. This is also a sentiment respected by and accepted by the United States. Now, over the last week, we continue to receive questions from the press about the next phases of this plan, which are warranted as conversations are ongoing to discuss these details. But I remind you what remains in front of us here: the release of all of our hostages, a commitment the Prime Minister has made. Sahar Baruch, Itai Chen, Omer Nutra, Amiram Cooper, Oz Daniel, Meni Goddard, Hadar Golden, Ron Gvili, Asaf Mami, Joshua Molel, Dror Ord, Sudiask Rintalak, and Lior Rudaef. These are their names, and we are working in all capacities to ensure that they come home. I will now take a few questions from you guys. Okay, so the first question is from Joel Pollack from Breitbart News. One, is Israel prepared to patrol Gaza alone if Arab and Muslim nations do not? I'll answer that very quickly for you. The Prime Minister has said, Joel, it's going to be done the easy way or the hard way, and Israel will have overall security control of the Gaza Strip. I'll point you back to the 20-point plan, which we continue to reiterate, which Israel remains extremely committed to as we have upheld our side of the agreement. Gaza will be demilitarized, and Hamas will have no part in governing the Palestinian people. You also asked a second question. Vice President Vance said he was personally insulted by the Knesset bill on annexation of Judea and Samaria. I will simply say to you, we released a statement on this, and you can refer back to that statement. Matthew Duran from ABC Australia. Mossad and the Israeli government have just published details of a senior Iranian operative they say are behind fueling anti-Semitic attacks around the world, including in Australia. Was this intelligence provided to Australian authorities prior to the Australian government expelling the Iranian ambassador to Australia over such concerns in late August? And are you concerned these operations are still being run around the world? So I'm not going to discuss any private conversations between Israeli intelligence and the Australian intelligence as well. No need for anything like that. And we know that Iran has been trying to promote anti-Semitism around the world. This is what they have been trying to do. And this is exactly what the statement says. And I will refer you back to that statement for more details on that. Lazar Berman, The Times of Israel. Given Israel's long and sour experience with international peacekeeping forces, including UNIFIL in Lebanon, why is it putting any hopes in the international security force being created inside of the Gaza Strip? So in terms of any details, like I mentioned in this briefing, Lazar, the phase 2 of this, all of these details are happening, all these conversations are ongoing. So when it comes to this international security force or this stabilization force, many of you in the media continue to talk about, all of those details are still being spoken about. And that's one of the reasons why the American administration, President Trump, his team, his incredible team, Vice President Vance, in addition to Secretary of State Rubio, they have been here to work with Prime Minister Netanyahu and his team to ensure they are in full coordination together, which of course we are. The Prime Minister has said we are in the days of destiny. We are working through a moment together to get us to the points where we can put all of these phases into action. And I want to bring everyone back to where we are in this moment. Phase 1, which is making sure all of our hostages are returned home. Hamas made a commitment before this plan that all 48 of our hostages would be released. Here I am, standing on day 13 of when our 20 living hostages came home, and we still have 13 hostages in captivity at this point in time. This is a focus we, Israel, are currently on. And like I said, I reiterated the points about the team that Israel just allowed back into the Gaza Strip to help locate our deceased hostages. Another question, how can Israel claim to respect the freedom of the press if it continues to refuse to allow international journalists into Gaza without being chaperoned by the IDF? Lazar, if there is any change to policy on that, I will certainly let you know. But there is a lot of information that continues to come out of the Gaza Strip, specifically on social media. Of course, journalists want to get in on their own, but I have been following on social media on myself what's happening inside of the Gaza Strip. And just within the last week, I've seen a plethora of food go inside. I've seen these bustling restaurants in large cities taking place with enormous menus as well. So there is clearly enough food inside of the Gaza Strip, as we have continued to say as well. Just going through these questions. Dan Williams, From Bloomberg, is Israel pre-informing the U.S. about military actions in Gaza, such as yesterday's airstrike? If so, doesn't this risk compromising tactical secrecy, speed, and efficiency? So the Prime Minister has made it very clear today, Dan, that Israel acts as the independent state, and if there is any type of threat to our soldiers, any imminent threat, Israel will do what it takes to defend our soldiers and our citizens here. But the United States and Israel are in full coordination as we take steps inside of this plan that we are upholding, we are committed to, we are following. And like I said, we are working with the Americans hand in hand, and we will continue to do so throughout this. And also the incredible partnership between the President Trump, and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Like I said, we just had a week of their team visiting us to focus on this plan, to focus on what's going on inside of the Gaza Strip. Yael Ben-Horin from EFE, could you please give more detail about what forces would be considered unacceptable when controlling Gaza? The Prime Minister has made it clear these conversations are ongoing and details will not be shared, of course, as things are still needing to be worked out. Lior Soroka from the Washington Post. Is the Red Cross team and the Egyptian team two separate teams? I can refer you back to what I said in terms of that coordination with bringing this team beyond the IDF-CLO line to help search for our deceased hostages, because Hamas has not returned our 13 hostages yet. Okay, so these are all the questions that I see right now. Thank you all so much for joining. I appreciate your time.